It's Friday, December 10. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says social progress won't be possible without having a partnership between capital and entrepreneurship and with government and labor. He was speaking at Tuesday's groundbreaking ceremony for One Belmont in New Kingston.
There is very little social progress that can be guaranteed without having a partnership between capital, the entrepreneurship and risk-taking, and government and labor. And what we have to do as a country is to begin to recognize and respect the value and importance of each member of that partnership. And we need to stop this kind of partnership and class warfare.
The $3.75 billion One Belmont project is a 79,000 square foot Class A corporate office space being developed through partnership between Indigenous Real Estate Finance and O'Dare Holdings Limited. Fully vaccinated individuals will be permitted to visit loved ones at infirmaries this Christmas season. Local Government and Rural Development Minister Desmond McKenzie says visits will be allowed at infirmaries and correctional facilities between December 19 and January 2 under strict COVID-19 protocols. Those wishing to visit infirmary residents will be required to apply for an appointment through the matrons of the facilities. The minister says only 3 persons should be allowed per visit, and each visit should last for 30 minutes. The examination depot at Swallowfield Road now boasts its own test driving simulator. The Transport Authority handed over the equipment at a virtual ceremony recently. Minister of Transport and Mining Robert Montague says his team is determined to address the issue of high accident rates on the nation's roads. He says research has shown that a driving simulator improves driver training, resulting in safer drivers and a reduction in the accident rate.
The simulator is so designed that you can have wet road, you can have night driving, rainy road, and the inspector will observe how you operate that vehicle without taking you out of the yard, and then know once you pass that and put you on the thing.
He laments that over the years, maximum road fatality targets have been set with a view to not exceeding them. The minister notes that more than 400 people have died in road fatalities so far this year.
The frightening thing is that 34% of the 437, or 151 persons, assistant commissioner, have died after curfew hours.
He says the driving simulator, valued at $5.4 million, comes in addition to digital road code testing.
Once you finish the test, before you do the yard test, the inspector is going to put you on the simulator to ensure that you know how to control a vehicle.
Minister Montague notes that of the 72,000 persons who took the road code test in 2020, 85% have passed. The major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, MOCA, is conducting several investigations involving alleged corrupt public officials. That's the word from Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang. He gave an update in Parliament this week.
MOCA has a total of 10 significant ongoing investigations against alleged corrupt public officials. These range across various ministries, departments, and agencies. The matters range from abuse of position of authority for individual financial gain, but also include conspiracies between individuals to misappropriate state funds for use by them or others.
Dr. Chang says the investigations are significant in terms of scope, profile, and national security. He says MOCA has, since 2016, conducted 452 operations, made 353 arrests, laid 305 charges, and has had 217 convictions.
Despite the challenge of operating in a landscape of increased public health with COVID-19, MOCA has continued to deliver some strong operational outcomes by concluding a number of complex investigations. I will give one or two examples. The The agency, in collaboration with international partners, has recently investigated and disrupted an extremely prolific transnational major organized crime group. Lot of scamming, to be specific, advanced credit fraud legally, lot of scamming in our regular language in Western Jamaica, which it assessed to have defrauded citizens of the United States in excess of $330,000 United States dollars, or Jamaican $40 million.
Grace Kennedy Limited, Honeybun, and Lasco Financial were the big winners at the recent Jamaica Stock Exchange's Best Practices Awards ceremony. Grace Kennedy copped the Governor General's Award in the main market. In the junior market category, repeat winner Honeybun Limited shared that top prize with Lasco Financial Services Limited. Among the other winners were NCB Capital Markets Limited, who walked away with the coveted Chairman's Award for overall members dealers. JSC Group's Managing Director, Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, said despite the COVID-19 pandemic, she was pleased with the heightened compliance to best practices among companies.
We had an improvement in main market and junior market listed companies' timely filing compliance rate for audited financial statement, which increased from 63% and 74% in 2019 to 85% and 92% in 2020. Now, this is what I think we have to applaud. The fact that there was a pandemic, 2020 was rough, but the filings were good, the compliance rate. To cap it, there was a 100% compliance rate by a listed company in submitting preliminary disclosures to the market on the impact of COVID-19 on their operations.
The awards are now in the 17th year. We now get an extended business report from Gabriel Thompson.
And in a democracy, public trust is the only currency that we have.
The Public Bodies Management and Accountability Nomination, Selection and Appointment to Boards regulations were passed in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. Jamaica has approximately 146 public bodies responsible for significant resources. There are 54 self-financing public bodies that have revenues exceeding $325 billion annually. The resolution is intended to increase transparency in the appointment of persons to public body boards. Finance and Public Service Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke, who piloted the legislation, called the regulations a quantum leap as compared with the ad hoc process that has existed for decades. The regulations will, among other things, require public body boards to have a minimum of 30% of each gender, require in law that boards have persons with the competencies required for the board, introduce term limits for public body boards, and allow persons to nominate themselves to be included in the database from which board selections are made.
That's a big change. Madam Speaker, we're serious about a participatory democracy, where persons who have competence, who have experience, and something to offer can put their hand up and say, consider me. Here are my details, here is my experience.
Dr. Clarke noted the entities that fall outside the scope of the regulations.
The regulations do not apply to the boards of educational institutions, except where those educational institutions or their boards are public bodies. So school boards and we're going to have to address school boards at another point, but they fall outside the ambit of these regulations. The regulations do not apply to ex officio members of boards who are persons who by virtue of their office are named to be appointed to boards of public bodies. And the reason for that, Madam Speaker, is that we still have, a lot of acts that are passed that require a permanent, somebody to sit on the board, and people might find themselves sitting on more than 3 boards, and we don't have a conflict.
Under the regulations, the Financial Secretary will be responsible for the creation of a database of prospective directors. This database will be established within the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and will be an electronic system.
This is pivotal, Madam Speaker, towards meeting the need for transparency in the selection and appointment of prospective directors. Information contained in this database, Madam Speaker, such as the name, the knowledge, the skills, and experience of prospective directors will be subject to a due diligence check to determine the veracity of this information. So you put your information forward, you said you spent 10 years working at John Brown Limited, then, we need to verify that that is indeed the case.
Opposition spokesperson on finance Julian Robinson supported the legislation, echoing the finance minister's statements that the regulations will not be a remedy for all ills.
I want to support what the minister said about not viewing these board regulations as a panacea for the problems that we had. In fact, when I looked at some of the issues that have arisen in the last year, 2-3 years, almost all individuals who have been found to have breached board rules, some who are being charged criminally, I would say almost all of them would pass a fit and proper test. Almost every single one of them. So I just want to support, I'm not saying you have suggested it, you have been clear, but I know I've seen calls from other places, and I think it is important that we set an expectation about what this exercise will deliver. And we support it, but not to assume that all of a sudden these issues that we have had will go away.
And in a brief address to Parliament, Prime Minister Andrew Holness noted that the regulations are first introduced to the House of Representatives in December 2019. The Prime Minister says the regulations represent an acknowledgement of a deficiency in public administration.
And the need to moderate politics in governance. And I'm using moderate as a euphemism. I mean, really what we need to do is to minimize, if not take out, politics out of governance in public administration. But that has been a struggle, as you can imagine, a real struggle. And I want the country to appreciate that the government you elected wrestled with this issue internally because not everyone sees this as being an absolute necessity.
For the Business Report inside the news on Pbcj, I'm Gabrielle Thompson. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, December 9, the US dollar sold for an average $155.62. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $123.38. The pound sterling traded for $205.63, and the euro sold for an average $178.42. In Thursday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 2,562 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 92 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 34 declined, and 21 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 13 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 1834 Investments Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Stocks declined for Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, Derrimont Trading Company Limited, and Epley 7.5% preference shares. Mailpack Group Limited was the volume leader with over 5 million units, followed by Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 2.1 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 1.5 million units. And in market data for oil, prices were on track for their biggest weekly gain since late August, with market sentiment buoyed by easing concerns over the Omicron coronavirus variant's impact on global economic growth and fuel demand. The Brent and WTI benchmarks were both on course for gains of more than 7% this week, their first weekly gain in 7 weeks, even after a brief bout of profit-taking. Brent crude futures were up 66 cents or 0.9% at $75.08 a barrel after falling 1.9% on Thursday. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 74 cents or 1% to $71.68 after sliding 2% in a volatile session the previous day. Earlier in the week, the oil market had recovered about half the losses suffered since the Omicron outbreak on November 25, with prices lifted by early studies suggesting that 3 doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine offers protection against the Omicron variant. And with that, we close this extended edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
In news from across the region, in Grenada, as government prepares to dip into consolidated fund to pay Christmas bonuses, it has begun a process of cutting foreign currency expenditures. According to Foreign Affairs Minister Oliver Joseph, no longer will Grenada hold as many physical offices or embassies in countries and international organizations. More details in this report.
The move to appoint more honorary consuls rather than have embassies with ambassadors or high commissioners is part of government's initiative to reduce the cost to Grenada.
It is very expensive to have embassies located outside of Grenada. You have to rent space, provide accommodation for the ambassador, pay the staff with in US currency, and therefore, in order to reduce costs, we are seeking to appoint more honorary consuls.
It was first announced during the budget debate by Foreign Affairs Minister Oliver Joseph that there are changes to the diplomatic representations outside of Grenada. One of the adjustments is the ambassador in the United States, who is also the non-resident ambassador to Mexico, to now represent Grenada as the non-resident High Commissioner to Canada.
There is an arrangement with the OECS where the OECS have one High Commission in Canada that represents the OECS countries. But for the remainder of the OECS, they have taken a decision to appoint non-resident high commissioners to Canada. So traditionally, we have appointed our ambassador in Washington, that is our ambassador to the United States, and the OAS as our non-resident high commissioner. Because Canada is a member of the Commonwealth, we use the term High Commissioner. And when the country is not a member of Commonwealth, we use the term Ambassador.
The Foreign Affairs Minister notes that this is the government's policy direction of establishing more honorary consuls via a mixture of citizens who are Grenadians by naturalization, birth, and the CBI.
We have recently requested the appointment for someone to be Grenada's ambassador to the WTO, but we await the response so that we can make a full announcement when the person is fully accredited. And there are other international organizations that we have appointed, made up appointment to others in the International Maritime Organization and other UN agencies where it is no cost to the government of Grenada.
Grenada will be represented and internal investments promoted for the country by these potential honorary consuls. I am Gerard Joseph for GBN News.
As the number of air travelers into St. Kitts and Nevis continues to increase at a time when the country has a high vaccination rate, authorities are moving to facilitate easier entry at the nation's 2 airports. Glenn Bart has the details in this report.
According to Abdiel Samuel, chairman of the National COVID-19 Task Force, a so-called scan-and-go system will shortly be introduced at the RLB International Airport on St. Kitts and the Vance Amory International Airport on Nevis, ending the need for quarantining incoming passengers.
So when you enter into the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, you are now going to use your barcode that is given on the approval letters to simply scan and go. So it's about a scan and go, and if the system detects any challenges with you, then you will be taken for a secondary screening, and that's at the Port Health area. So when you enter the Welcome Center, you're going to simply scan your barcode. Once the system is fine, you just proceed to immigration and customs, and then from there on, you will get your transportation. At immigration, the Chief Immigration Officer, Ms. Moslin Hughes, has taken the proactive approach after consultation with the task force to increase the immigration officers that will be processing inbound passengers. So you will see from 5 booths being operated to 10 booths being operated. So you should see those implementations there shortly. At customs, we are still in some discussions with the airlines in terms of moving the baggages a little more faster so that there is no bottleneck at customs, as the bottlenecks are created at customs or in the baggage hall area by the late arrivals of the bags that are taken off the aircraft and brought for the passengers to receive their luggages. So once these processes are smooth out, then you're going to see a faster processing process at the airport.
Meanwhile, health authorities and the task force continue to monitor the global situation in regards to the Omicron COVID-19 variant that is said to be highly transmissible. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, TTPS, says while it continues to be concerned with the murder toll in the country's Central Division, it has been able to increase its detection rate in woundings and shootings. Sunil Lala was at the TTPS media briefing on Thursday and filed this report.
I want to bring to your attention is that crime of wounding, the woundings and shootings. That crime itself increased.
Head of the Central Division, Acting Senior Superintendent Kurt Simon says, while the police service have seen a reduction in violent crimes compared to last year, wounding and shootings have been increasing. He says while they have not experienced a reduction in the murder toll in the Central Division, there has, however, been an increase in the number of people arrested for shootings.
In fact, we had almost 50% detection rate, solve rate in terms of our woundings and shootings. And one might well imagine that woundings and shootings are very close to that prominent offense of murder. So when we are able to detect these woundings and shootings, what we are actually doing is impacting the murder.
Superintendent Simon says there has also been a 5% reduction in serious crimes compared to the same period in 2020. He notes that the murder toll is not at an acceptable level and is working to reduce this figure.
You know, that toll, we are a bit behind where we want it to be, and we are working closely with the Homicide Bureau at Region 3 in trying to bring that in terms of the solve rate under some sort of more acceptable level.
The senior superintendent believes the Central Division continues to work apace despite constant setbacks due to the pandemic.
I think Central Division, we have one of the highest quarantine rates in policing, and yet, despite that, we have been able to function. The men and the women, they have kept their heads up, their chins up, and performing at optimum level.
Mr. Simon says the police service will continue apace with its intelligence-led policing to curb spontaneous and organized crime, especially as Christmas nears. Sonolala, TTT News.
In sports, we're on the field with football. Former Reggae Boys assistant coach Paul Hall has been appointed as head coach of the national football team for the duration of the CONCACAF World Cup cycle. The Jamaica Football Federation announced on Thursday that Theodore Tappa Whitmore has been removed from his position as head coach of the Reggae Boys. The move comes as the Reggae Boys sit at 6th place in the 8-team table, with only the top 3 countries short of a place to the Qatar 2022 World Cup finals. The 4th-placed team will be forced into a playoff for another spot. Jamaica's next game in the World Cup qualifiers is against Mexico on January 27 at the National Stadium. And that's our package. You've just watched the news on PBCJ, the People's Station.